Now, I'm not going to like this. I'll tell you for why shortly, but can you guess what it is yet? No, it's not actually going to be a Borg cube, but this is, in fact, a cube made out of cardboard that for some reason I've acquired along the way, and it does in fact exist to promote Star Trek First Contact, released in late 1996. So we're actually going to be looking at this little chap down here, the Sovereign class, U.S.S. Enterprise, NCC-1701-E from Playmates. And oh dear, oh dear. And I can actually use this cube to demonstrate for why, oh dear. Love that. Star Trek First Contact on video and on sale now. Okay, yeah, on video, kids. That's how old Star Trek First Contact is. It's nearly 30 years old. Yeah, that's old. That's old. Yeah, okay. So here is the Enterprise whooshing into combat to try and save the day, of course, which it would because it's an Enterprise. Unfortunately, the Playmates design for this ship was clearly not taken from the one that we end up seeing on screen. So I just had a little look at the reveal shots of the Enterprise E on YouTube, just to remind myself of what it really ought to look like, because it did morph a little bit over time with the films, but this is the version that we're talking about here, so the earliest First Contact version of it, basically. So let's get rid of the large cardboard cube, and let's have a look at the box for the Playmates Star Trek First Contact NCC-1701-E, which is here. So you'll see immediately that, as you might have seen with the Phoenix, actually, if you've been watching this playlist that long, this is very much themed and styled along the lines of the film. So you can immediately see that rather than having a sort of generic Star Trek logo, what we've actually got is a Star Trek First Contact themed logo. And the upshot of that is that we've got this nice Borg gentleman on the left here. And it's basically really sort of stressing the fact that, hey, look guys, it's a toy from a film. So we've got on the left there, the U.S.S. Enterprise NCC-1701-E explores the final frontier, except in the film it just goes back to Earth. So not so much, but okay. We've got a try me hole in the box, which is perfectly standard. And this is an all-new Federation starship design from the hit motion picture. Now, as I've just outlined to you, that's completely inaccurate, because actually the design that's in the film is not what you're looking at, I'm afraid. Now, when we actually look at the toy itself, this will, I'll try and figure out exactly what went right and what went wrong here, but there are two things that are screaming at me right here. Right, there are now three things screaming at me right here, because I've just added one mentally just looking at it. In the actual film, which you might even remember from that cube that I just showed you, it doesn't have one great big kit style impulse engine that's a solid block. No, it actually has two impulse engines. It has one impulse engine on either side of the neck. So that is completely wrong. Also, it does not have buzzard collectors that look like fake nails. That's not a thing either. In the film, the buzzard collectors are capped off, and it has a sort of an arch covering half of the buzzard collector that arches over the top of it. It's like a sort of like a bridge, yeah? So they're somewhat shielded in case someone takes a pot shot at them. So those are wrong. They literally look like someone has stuck fake nails onto a pair of warp nacelles. It's quite bizarre. And the third thing which I've just noticed is that there is no differentiation of colouring on the top of the hull here, and there should be indications that it has a darker segments of armour on top. So most of that detail is off, basically. So it's unfortunate, but this is not the first time we've encountered this. This box is dated 1996, which is when the film came out. So in order to have this ready for release when the film actually came out, simultaneously, they would have to have worked off a relatively early design, presumably, in order to incorporate all of this and get it manufactured and get it on shelves ready for the film. So that makes perfect sense in that respect. And that is why, like we had with the Deep Space Nine Defiant, if you remember, where it was calling it the Valiant class, what's happened is that because they were in such a hurry to get the toy out, they didn't have time to wait for the final design of the ship to be finalized. So they went with what they thought it was going to be at the time when they went into production, and of course it got changed. So that's why they inadvertently shot themselves in the foot with this, because it isn't as you might expect it to be if you're a nitpicky Trekker, which of course I am and many others are. So here we are, and you can see it's not any different on the back than the front, of course, and it does not look right at all. I mean, you can see the length of these Buzzard collectors. It's just bizarre, because they should not be anywhere near that long, and this should be somewhat shielded. So it's all very, very curious. So we've got Federation Starship profile, Starship U.S.S. Enterprise, registry NCC-1701-E, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, propulsion, warp drive. The E was commissioned to replace its predecessor, which was destroyed by a renegade Klingon attack at Viridian 3, correct. It is the sixth starship to bear the legendary name Enterprise. The first Enterprise, NCC-1701, was captained by James T. Kirk, although not at first, of course, whose famed exploits led Starfleet to commemorate his ship by passing down its name to future generations of vessels. Fair enough. The Borg are back. I love the fact that it says the Borg TM are back. The most lethal threat to humanity's existence has returned with a new starship. No, it hasn't. It's still a Borg cube, and a new strategy for conquering Earth. They never actually tried. Well, no, they did actually. No, never mind. The Federation's defences fail. It's not really accurate, and the Terran system is about to be conquered. No. Faced with a simulation by the Borg, also no. Starfleet turns to Captain Jean-Luc Picard. No, they didn't. They kicked him out of the anti-invasion fleet, actually, and his crew from the new U.S.S. Enterprise. They stopped the Borg invasion once before, but this time fate is against them. To save Earth, they must boldly go where no one has gone before. With what, Earth? so you can see they're probably working with a sort of a rough idea of the script and a rough idea of how it's going to work. There's no mention of time travel there. All they really know probably at this point is there's a new Enterprise and it's the Borg. That might be as much as they know. So there's no launch information there about the E. At the time of the film, which is, I think it was from memory now, 2373, something around there. And we know that the E has been in a shakedown cruise for about a year. So we know that it's been commissioned. This is sort of around this time that Deep Space Nine is running as a series as well. So Worf joins the fight on the Defiant, which is knocked out, but he then joins the crew of the Sovereign in order to sort of bring the original Next Gen cast back together again. So it's cleverly done in that sense. I don't dislike it on that basis, And we also get to see the Defiant in a film as well, so it's canonically in a film as well as in the series various. So that sort of element of it is nicely done. The problem is that this ship does not resemble the Enterprise E that I've just been talking about. So problematic at best. So let's get this out and have a proper look at it. And here she is. And it is kind of, you know, as I feared, unfortunately. The impulse engine's all wrong. Warp missile buzzard collectors are all wrong. There is actually a little bit of different coloration here and here, which kind of suggests that they did pick up on maybe some of the armoring idea, possibly. But unfortunately, because of the way that they've done the impulse engine, it throws out the whole of the sort of the back half of, I'd call it the saucer section, but it's not very saucery. And as I understand it, one of the reasons for that is that if you think about the difference between the next generation and a cinema screen, the next generation was done in 3:4. So it was done for sort of, you know, fairly square TV screens. So the Enterprise D was quite short and stubby. No offense, Enterprise D, we love you dearly. Whereas with the Enterprise E, they thought, right, it's a cinema Enterprise. We're gonna stretch her. If you're getting sort of Voyager Intrepid vibes off it, that's partly the thought process, perhaps, but it's also because they have more screen width to play with. So that's why I think in part you get this slightly elongated design. But nonetheless, unfortunately, this is the wrong elongated design. I mean, I'm laughing at, I've got a Der erste Kontakte instruction sheet for some reason for this. But it does have an English version as well. So yeah, stuff on assembling the engine nacelles. Weirdly, it says to activate lights and sounds, press the corresponding activation button as shown in diagram D. These buttons light up the tip of the engine nacelles and the impulse engine simultaneously with each of the following sounds: impulse engine, decloaking, and warning signal with phaser blast. Why on earth does it have a decloaking sound effect? It's the Enterprise E. I'm not aware that it had a cloaking device. Now, maybe that was in the original script that they saw. I don't know. It's possible. But we did not see that on screen, so it is not a canon thing that the Enterprise E has miraculously acquired a cloaking device. So let's try those sound effects and see exactly what's occurring there. I will, as is traditional, kill off the lights so you can see the gloriously incorrect buzzard collectors and warp impulse engines rather doing their stuff. So I think we can see those there, can't we? Okay, let's try. There's 3 buttons, incidentally, not the normal 4, or the 4 that had been normal prior to 96 at least. This worked when I tried it a moment ago, honest. What on earth was that? I mean, I have to say, I'm really surprised that Playmates let this go out the door like this. I don't know if there is any official backstory behind this, but this is just odd for them. It's all just very, very strange. I mean, I don't even want to repeat the other one because that was just frightening and scary and completely random. It's just, what on earth? I mean, did they just rush it? You know, I mean, is it just me? Am I being unduly harsh? Let me give you some more lights, and I'll take it past the camera for you so you can sort of see the level of detail and so on. I mean, you know, there's plenty of window detail and lots of sort of escape pod hatches there, so that, I mean, that's okay. But it just isn't very accurate. And I know they're not normally as accurate as Diamond Select. I get that. It's a toy. But Nonetheless, I have come to expect a little more attention to detail and care from Playmates, rightly or wrongly. And even the size of it, I mean, it's supposed to be a really big state-of-the-art starship. And actually, if you were to look at this alongside the conventional original series Enterprise from Playmates, it will get outclassed in the sort of, you know, the bulk department. It's kind of odd like that. As I say, you know, the reasoning has to be that they just didn't have the detail they needed to do one that was going to be screen accurate, because they got an early design. So unfortunately, what we've ended up with is this strange sort of chimera-esque thing where maybe they've even just taken the best guess. I don't know. But, you know, clearly the Buzzard collectors are completely out. The impulse engine is completely out and looks really odd because it ends up being split into two. And the other little details just aren't there. I mean, yes, the navigational deflector is kind of right. And it's got some of the, you know, the sort of the torpedo launcher is kind of there in the middle of the saucer section. So that's kind of right. And then the actual nacelle pylons don't look too bad either. I think they're broadly okay. It's just unfortunate that some of the biggest, well, you know, some of the mistakes, let's say, not the biggest mistakes, just the mistakes, they're the most obvious things on the ship, because the Buzzard collectors are huge. There's no missing them, and there's no missing the fact that they're wrong. And the same exact thing can be said of the impulse engine. So I would be fascinated to understand if anyone knows why they didn't just kind of hold on a little bit, because if you're going to release a box that says, you know, this is a shiny new design that's accurate to a film, and it turns out not to be, well, you're going to have egg on your face, aren't you? Inevitably. And this is, you know, we're getting towards the end of their license period now. So it's kind of unfortunate that this got, well, I don't even know that it got rushed, but the sound effects, I was expecting at least the sound effects would sound, even if they just borrowed sound effects from the Next Generation. You know, they've been doing the Enterprise D for years by this point. They could have just borrowed some of its effects, and they probably would have got away with that. But instead, neither the description nor the actual effects themselves really hold up. So I have to say, you know, of the Playmate ships that I've looked at to this point, which is most of them, this one's got to be the least awe-inspiring, if I'm perfectly honest. Because I don't really know how many people would want to even display this necessarily, because it just does not look right. You know, at least you can say about Playmates is that when they do bring something out, yes, they may have compromised for play features, but at least it looks the part. Whereas this is just a bit, it looks cheap. So, I mean, you know, flame away in the comments by all means, because, you know, there may be vastly different opinions about this one, but it just, I mean, even the quality of the paintwork on the nacelles, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like a Playmates product almost. It's really odd. I mean, I can't actually see Bandai mentioned on here, but I'm assuming this is the European release. Although I could be wrong. Oh, it is Bandai. Yes, it's actually got interesting. It's got a Bandai sticker on it, so it hasn't even got a European box. It's had a Bandai sticker applied to the box. I'll just show you there. So actually, they've taken quite a sort of an odd route with it, in the sense that, you know, they obviously didn't do two box styles, and again, that just leads me to believe that they didn't sort of think this one through, or didn't have enough time to think it through, for whatever reason. I mean, maybe they thought they were going to have until the next year. Perhaps because bringing the Star Trek film out in December is kind of odd. I wonder if they thought they were going to have until summer the next year. Possible. But even then, it would have been that's almost worse, because if it was still this design, they'd have had even more time to realise that actually their design wasn't right. But then maybe they would have had time to fix it. I don't know. This is all golden guesswork on my part at this point. But I do remember seeing a comment on one of my other videos that mentioned that this one in particular had suffered because they'd done it off a off a sort of a prototype E rather than the actual E, and I really can't just argue with that as a good guess if it was a guess, because that does seem to be the case here. So that was Playmates' attempt at the Enterprise E. Now, let me balance this out by saying this is not the end of the Enterprise E story from Playmates. There is another one. However, I don't possess it yet. I'm kind of hoping someone's going to give me a nice eBay offer for one, because as is often the way, they are only around in the States, it seems. So if I can find the other E in due course, obviously I will bring you that version of it and we can compare and contrast. But I'm afraid for the time being, this is the Playmates Enterprise E, whatever you may think of it. It even looks weird like that. I can't even display it front on for you. So let me take you up, and I'll try and leave you with a slightly more flattering shot of it than just sort of pointy, virtually invisible thing. So there you go. That is the Enterprise E of a sort from above from Playmates. Cheers for now.